Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. In a majestic palace, within the quiet room, Jui God King revealed his true form, a massive avian creature. His body was shrouded in ink-like mist, with a hint of blood red at the top of his head, and his cold eyes appeared both closed and open. He was born in the primordial cosmos, and had come to the land of origin via the Samsara channel. In the primordial cosmos, he was a special kind of life form, inherently a ferocious avian creature that delighted in consuming other creatures. He was like a nightmare in that cosmos, annihilating one group after another. The novelfire.net ** website, on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Eventually, he became the most terrifying entity in the border territories of that primordial cosmos. All living beings within were consumed by him, and only after he passed through the samsara did the newly born creatures in that area get a chance to breathe. Yet upon arriving in the land of origin, his strength continued to rise, and he later took control of his home primordial cosmos too. His divine power incarnations randomly consumed living beings at will. In the land of origin, I'm still not strong enough, Jui God King lamented. Although he was born with a predilection for consuming living beings, he could now only indulge himself within his own territory to whet his appetite. The children he had raised in the land of origin had extraordinary bloodlines, and were born powerful, most of them also preferring to devour creatures. When will I become truly invincible in the land of origin? Jui God King wondered expectantly, his icy eyes shining with anticipation. Only then can I consider the entire land of origin my hunting ground. It would be a true delight, utterly carefree. Suddenly, an invisible attack descended. Jui God King vanished silently into nothingness. As if a rubber had erased him, he was no more. His weapons and treasures, however, fell to the side, untouched by the assault. In the quiet room, Luo Feng dressed in black appeared on the scene. His too weak, Luo Feng shook his head lightly. With just a slight penetration of my Great Extinction style, he's gone. Great Extinction style was a combination of 6 branches of the Great Tao of Life and Death with curse-killing properties that could affect all avatars of the opponent. Of course, Jui God King did not have an avatar, and at the moment of his death, his resurrection carrier was impacted as well. A resurrection carrier could be something as simple as a drop of blood or a feather, which was far less resistant than an avatar. Under the Great Extinction style, it was instantly annihilated. Because it happened so swiftly, Jui God King didn't even have time to use his reincarnation secret art. You are the first godly king to die under my Great Extinction style. Luo Feng was quite pleased with the power of this move, which he had created over the span of 30+ years, referencing the memories from his dreams. Annihilate. With just a thought from Luo Feng, a wisp of black smoke instantly crossed vast distances and descended upon the 7 children of Jui God King. Aside from a daughter who loathed consuming living beings and took a different godly king as her master, the rest of the 7 were like Jui God King himself, relishing the prolonged consumption of countless creatures. With the death of Jui God King, the primordial cosmos he controlled was once again free. Thus, outside the primordial cosmos, a slightly smaller, vast small universe also began to collapse. The Holy Land is collapsing. Has the Ancestor died? Impossible, how could the Ancestor possibly die? In this small universe, the descendants of Jui God King were filled with horror. However, in the primordial cosmos and numerous small universes, the mighty beings cheered. The creatures from many reincarnation eras had lived in the shadow of Jui God King, with even the primordial cosmos under his control. Previously, they had been mere food on Jui God King's plate, chosen at will for consumption, powerless to resist. Until today, Jui God King had finally perished, and they had all been liberated at last. Although the death of Jui God King drew some attention from the powers of the land of origin, they didn't care too much. After all, it was not uncommon for ordinary first-realm godly kings to fall. Even if they were weak and destroyed, they usually had time to reincarnate. Reincarnating to escape disaster was a common practice among ordinary godly kings. Jui God King was weak, but even before Luo Feng had discovered the Great Extinction style, Jui God King could still reincarnate to escape. The power of chaotic whole undying light was not enough to instantaneously annihilate Jui God King along with his resurrection carrier. Even with the God King ultimate realm will combined with the Lai Yuan technique, there was no certainty of completely exterminating Jui God King. After all, Jui God King had traversed from the primordial universe, unlike those godly kings created through external forces in the shadow sky realm. After returning his disciple and Fengya to Huyang City, Luo Feng himself continued to travel through the land of origin. Tianji Icefield was a harsh environment, growing more frigid the deeper one went. Here, yet Luo Feng arrived at a warm and comfortable expanse, where no snow or wind could be seen, and lush vegetation thrived, with many tribes living in the wilderness. This environment was comfortable, and the number of cultivators had greatly increased. This is the Fire Ancestor realm. The Fire Ancestor had long resided in Fire Ancestor City, ruling over an extremely vast territory. This vast area, due to his presence, had become warmer, more suitable for life. Taking up less than a tenth of the Tianji Icefield, this place housed over half of the field's creatures. There are 5 reclusive cultivators, with the strength of emperors in the second realm of Godly King. Among them, the Wind City Empress and the Fire Ancestor stand aloof. He stands aloof because he does not contend. The Fire Ancestor lived in the secluded Tianji Icefield, not joining any power, and was rarely seen at various sacred sites. His strength was immense. Both ancient countries liked such powerful beings. He does not contend, yet he shelters more than half of the creatures in the Tianji Icefield, Luo Feng mused as he journeyed through the Fire Ancestor realm, observing its prosperity, and the reverence countless creatures held for the Fire Ancestor. Luo Feng also caught a distant glimpse of Fire Ancestor City. Fire Ancestor City seemed like a warm origin, with intangible rules in operation, naturally affecting the vast territories. Though it does not contend, it still protects countless creatures to the best of its ability. Admirable. Luo Feng also felt respect. There were very few powerhouses in the land of origin he admired, and the Fire Ancestor was one of them. Luo Feng continued to roam. Luo He. Inside Fire Ancestor City, a figure with simple clothes and red hair looked at Luo Feng from a distance and smiled. The land of origin is about to see the rise of another formidable being. As long as one comes to the Fire Ancestor realm, the Fire Ancestor can sense it. The Fire Ancestor then closed his eyes, his spirit and the myriad flames between heaven and earth seemed to merge as one. Some of these flames were used to cook food, some to refine pills, others to refine artifacts, and his spirit was one with these flames. Luo Feng arrived in the East Extreme Domain, the most remote and desolate place in the land of origin. The Ancestor of the East Extreme Domain protects this place, and the Wind City Empress also hails from here. Luo Feng traversed this vast territory, where the power of heaven and earth was much thinner, and the treasures of the world were rare. However, this place was comfortable, and various fruits were common. These indigenous creatures were generally burly and gigantic, and they seldom used exquisite weapons, secret treasures, opting instead for simple weapons like stone and wooden clubs. Their diet was also very ordinary, consisting mainly of common fruits. They worshipped heaven and earth, and many indigenous creatures were attuning to and comprehending the universe. When they fought, it was also cruel and frenzied. The indigenous creatures care not for external objects, but seek what is within. Yet among them, many godly king-level beings have been born, even existences on the level of the Wind City Empress. Who can say that their path is mistaken? Luo Feng understood their way. Casting aside all externals, focusing on oneself, focusing on the great Tao. This was the path of the indigenous beings. Luo Feng walked to the end of the land of origin, looking ahead at the endless universe ocean. The primal chaos current surged tumultuously, dark and without end in sight. Whether it's the primordial cosmos or the land of origin, the world is fascinating. Luo Feng sat cross-legged at the edge of the continent, gazing at the universe ocean, yet many ancient godly kings have used countless creatures as fodder for their cultivation. They are all extremely intelligent, and have partially unraveled the profound mysteries of the operation of the great Tao. However, they do not care about the joy and sorrow of ordinary creatures. What they care about is their own power. Whether they can reach the ultimate realm. Whether they can transcend the source world. And so, those ancient beings meticulously schemed. Perhaps, this is a part of the natural order of the cosmos. Luo Feng understood this too. The operation of the cosmos is composed of 9 complete great Taos. The law of the jungle is just one aspect of it, which also drives countless creatures to strive and compete. Empathy is a characteristic of living beings, and Luo Feng also understood that his pity for the weak was an aspect of compassion in his emotions. The functioning of the cosmos, with the law of the jungle, emotions, order, cleansing of destruction, hope, all interwoven, contributed to the operation of the world. All things have their own Tao, and each has its fate. However, I have my Tao. Cultivators are those who overcome the cosmos with their own strength. With their Tao, they transcend the Tao of the cosmos and utterly break free from the source world. Luo Feng's eyes remained calm. When the time comes, I will be able to decide how everything operates. The so-called order and fate will be determined by me. This is cultivation. To follow the way of heaven is the path of the mediocre. To overcome the cosmos with individual strength is the pursuit of cultivators and the hope of the supreme rules that give birth to countless creatures, expecting them to transcend it. At this moment, Luo Feng's spirit underwent another transformation. For more than 2 centuries as a godly king, with a powerful soul foundation, cultivation in the dream domain, cultivation in infinite space, the assistance of treasures like the 5-colored treasure medicine and the destruction scale, creating the great extinction style from direct confrontation with dream memories, the 7 emotions of heart refining, journeying across the land of origin. A series of slow transformations, until now, had finally led to a qualitative change through accumulation. One's strength can prevail over heaven. The will of Luo Feng's spirit formed a clear humanoid figure, with a face similar to Luo Feng's. This clear figure enveloped Luo Feng, with terrifying will congealing, surveying in all directions with an intimidating presence. A spirit body. The will had become so powerful that it could leave the body and form an illusory entity. I feel, this spirit body is even stronger than my physical body. A will surpassing the godly king's level, extremely formidable, could suppress, or even destroy any godly king's will before it. Breaking through this bottleneck from a godly king's will to a will beyond God King, was the most difficult threshold on the path of Luo Feng's spiritual will. This bottleneck had trapped many godly kings. In the land of origin, only a very few could achieve this step. As of now, Luo Feng was one of them. Land of origin, within the infinite space treasure trove. On an ordinary island in the middle of a lake, Luo Feng sat cross-legged, his terrifying spiritual will slightly spreading around him, causing the space itself to twist slightly. Buzz. A message immediately came from the mark in Luo Feng's palm. Trialist, Luo Feng of Land of Origin. Rooted in the Great Tao of Life and Great Tao of Destruction, a new Great Tao has been forged. Evaluation of the new path, superior. Reward points, 10,000. You have finally taken the first step on this new path, but you must continue to strive. Before mastering a complete Great Tao, your spiritual will successfully broke through the limit of a godly king. Evaluation of spiritual will, special grade. Reward points, 100,000. Your spiritual will is outstanding. Perhaps, you can still advance further. Reminder, it is prohibited to kill any spiritual beings. Violators will be expelled from the infinite space permanently. Total reward points, 108,193.03. Luo Feng looked at this message and couldn't help but show a smile. Rich at last. Finally wealthy. The infinite space treasure trove had more allure than many other troves. The only flaw was that reward points was so difficult to come by. This time, 100,000 reward points gave Luo Feng a sense of affluence. Added a new reminder. Luo Feng noticed, prohibit the killing of any spiritual beings. Indeed, every cultivator who arrives in the infinite space gets a common godly king level physical body. Once the spiritual will breaks the godly king limit, in the infinite space, one becomes virtually invincible, able to kill a large number of spiritual beings with impunity. Luo Feng understood the rationale behind the rules. Without such a prohibition, there would hardly be any spiritual beings left alive in the infinite space. Of course, even with the prohibition, his avatar would remain here. The inheritance and resources obtained here were far superior to those in the two ancient countries. Perhaps this was also why Emperor Ming lingered here. Right, Emperor Ming is staying here. However, the Lord of 10,000 Realms and Emperor Qing, who have also surpassed the godly king limit in terms of their spiritual will, have not stayed. Luo Feng speculated as he looked at his information. Before mastering a complete Great Tao, if the spiritual will breaks through the godly king limit, the reward is 100,000 points. For people like the Lord of 10,000 Realms, who only broke through after reaching the ultimate realm, will their evaluation drop to superior. Reward points merely 10,000. I understand why they didn't stay, Luo Feng nodded slightly. The Lord of 10,000 Realms and Emperor Qing received fewer reward points, and if they weren't confident that they could reach a high enough level on a new path outside their current paths, it made sense to temporarily leave the infinite space. Only Emperor Ming and I, in the entire land of origin, have spiritual will evaluated as special grade. Forging a new Great Tao, reaching a special grade evaluation, I wonder what the threshold is. Luo Feng mused. With his achievements in the Great Tao of life and death, he only reached a superior evaluation. A special grade evaluation had such a high threshold. This also demonstrated the preciousness of reward points. Luo Feng began to look at the treasure trove of the infinite space. Now that he owned over 100,000 points, the information on treasures he could access greatly increased. Numerous inheritance messages emerged, and Luo Feng's gaze quickly swept to the 7th-ranked information. The 7th-ranked inheritance, 8 tribulations life form, covering the 6th, 7th, and 8th tribulations. Requires 100,000 points for exchange, with the highest cultivation attainable being a half primordial life. Reminder, the theoretical 9th tribulation within this inheritance holds potential for realization, and once completed, one may escape the braided cage. That high? Luo Feng was startled. The first 5 tribulations of 8 tribulations life form, added together, amounted to just over 10,000 reward points, including the complete Godly King stage of cultivation. However, from beyond the Godly King to half primordial life, it demanded such a high price. Senior Yuan managed to collect this inheritance, and even recognized that completing the 9th tribulation might offer a chance to escape the braided cage. Luo Feng's appreciation for this inheritance greatly increased. I have just over 100,000 points. I must set it aside for now. He couldn't possibly exchange all his reward points for an inheritance he couldn't use at the moment. What's most crucial for him now was first achieving the ultimate realm. Beyond God King. That was still far off for him. Moreover, according to the information he obtained from the special grade inheritance, every stage of a Godly King's foundation needed to be immensely solid, so these reward points certainly needed to be used. World Life Form, Chapter 3, Special Grade Inheritance, requires 60,000 reward points for exchange, Godly King Ultimate Realm Section. Chaotic Whole Beast Body, Chapter 3, Special Grade Inheritance, requires 60,000 reward points for exchange, Godly King Ultimate Realm Section. Luo Feng saw the information he wanted. Special Grade Inheritance in the Infinite Space, max exchanged up to the Ultimate Realm Section of a Godly King. Luo Feng viewed a vast amount of inheritance information. Perfection level inheritance, just for the 2nd realm of Godly King required 10,000 reward points. As for the points needed for the Ultimate Realm section, Luo Feng temporarily couldn't see them. Let's take a look at the treasures instead. Luo Feng wasn't in a hurry to exchange inheritances, and began to first look at various treasures. The Oval Fire.et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The highest ranked treasure, a primordial heart, needed 100,081 reward points for exchange. By integrating it into the body, one could achieve a primordial body, highly compatible with all origin great Tao. Recommendation: at least those who have enlightened branches in 5 origin great Tao should exchange. Reminder: once more than half of the supreme rules are controlled within each great Tao, achieving at least the second realm of the godly king in each, one has the hope to control the supreme rules, becoming the source world master. The second-ranked treasure, a miniature source world, required 100,081 reward points for exchange, suitable for cultivators of the origin Tao of the world. They could refine it as one of the worlds within their body, with boundless benefits. The third-ranked treasure, a primordial life research spaceship, required 100,000 reward points for exchange, suitable for cultivators of the great Tao of life origin. Suggestion: suitable for studying primordial bloodline, conducive to the ultimate awakening of primordial bloodline, escaping the braided cage. The rows of treasures at the front left Luo Feng dumbfounded. The sparse information made Luo Feng's heart tighten. Within the supreme rules, over half of the great Taos reach at least the second realm of godly king, thus one could aspire to become the master of the source world. Ultimate awakening of the primordial bloodline can also escape the braided cage. Even without purchasing many treasures, Luo Feng had learned some secret information. Luo Feng looked at them one by one. Time and again he was tempted, but Luo Feng was clear that the opportunity to buy was always there. However, he had only so many reward points and must maximize their use. Common Beyond God King level weapon secret treasures were generally priced between 12,500 to 50,000 points. The most expensive was 50,000 points. Beyond God King level weapon secret treasures generally have the effect of resisting spiritual will, either strong or weak. As Luo Feng viewed the simple information about these secret treasures, like the most expensive one worth 50,000 points, for the introduction, it reduced all attacks from beings less than a half primordial life to 10% of their original strength. All attacks, including those of spiritual will, soul attacks, causality attacks, etc., were all weakened. Who crafted these secret treasures? Luo Feng muttered to himself. Holding a sum of reward points, Luo Feng felt somewhat dazzled. He wanted this and that too. Because treasures of this level could give Luo Feng tremendous help. The only problem: too few reward points. Regardless, studying the Great Tao is the foundation. First, exchange for the cheapest Lotus Heart Seed. Luo Feng had previously exchanged for the Destruction Scale, and among the treasures compatible with the Great Tao of Life Origin, the cheapest was the Lotus Heart Seed, costing 18,000 reward points. Exchange. Luo Feng didn't hesitate. The reward points immediately dropped to 90,193.03 points. Considering future inheritance exchanges, he naturally needed to think more carefully about the treasures. His spiritual will had just broken through, and life and destruction were on the verge of reaching second realm of godly king. Luo Feng planned to stabilize his overall strength, and then pick treasures according to his strength at that time. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In Huyang City, inside the quiet room of the city owner's mansion, within the Star Tower, Luo Feng held a multicolored seed in his hand, feeling very good. Senior Yuan left infinite space in the land of origin. The more outstanding a cultivator, the greater the benefits one gains. Luo Feng felt great, as both the Lotus Heart Seed and the Destruction Scale would perfectly align him with the life and destruction great Taos. Like Emperor Gui Shu, Mother River Master, Earth God King, etc., all outstanding beings who'd received treasures left by Yuan, even those beyond God King level, yet their outcomes were all quite tragic. Luo Feng's mind stirred, looking towards the Star Tower. In the Infinite Space Treasure Vault, beyond God King level weapon secret treasures range between 10,000 to 50,000 points. I wonder how much my Star Tower is worth. With a thought, Luo Feng's spiritual will began to penetrate the Star Tower. This was the first time he carefully observed the Star Tower after his spiritual will breakthrough. Spiritual will began to penetrate inside the Star Tower. Huh! It's different from before. Luo Feng was pleasantly surprised to discover that his powerful spiritual will quickly penetrated deeper layers of the Star Tower, revealing infinitely mysterious secret patterns in his consciousness. These secret patterns. Luo Feng was perplexed. The secret patterns in the deeper parts of the Star Tower had significantly advanced in mystery, far exceeding a complete origin Great Tao. Luo Feng couldn't understand them. Countless secret patterns spiraled into deeper areas. Luo Feng's spiritual will followed these spiral directions, continuing deeper. The deeper he went, the more vast and complex the secret patterns became. Is this the hidden side of the Star Tower? Luo Feng's spiritual will continuously penetrated, peering into more secret patterns. As he penetrated to a very deep point, suddenly time stopped. That's strange. Luo Feng could feel that all his other avatars were in a suspended state of time. Clearly he was frozen in this moment. Yet this avatar's spiritual will kept peering. Though he couldn't understand the secret patterns, they became even more beautiful, even radiating with colors. Mainly in blood red, but also black, cyan, emerald green, purple, and many other colors. Boom. Luo Feng didn't know how long he had penetrated when finally, his spiritual will saw it. It was something hidden in the deepest part of the Star Tower. Scales. Luo Feng curiously looked. A piece of scale, hidden in the deepest part of the Star Tower, was a blood-red scale, yet the edge of the scale bore fully 12 colors. This scale within the Star Tower felt like the supreme rules within the source world, naturally affecting everything. It is not truly real. As the master of the Star Tower, Luo Feng had a feeling. This scale was the Star Tower. The Star Tower was the scale. Both were one. What he had peered into was just the outer appearance manifested by the mystery of the rules. This video will end here.